Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 12, season 2, episode 12 of Unmuted. Wolfless, thank you so much for the fire. What an absolute badass. Junior is in the house. Let's see who's it. Let's just see who we have here. You guys are already throwing up fires. I already got Prodigal Space subscribing at tier 1 for 6 months. Fragile. I'm just going to call you Fragile. Sorry. I'm dyslexic and I can't read. What's up, Fragile? Thank you for coming by. Dave is in the house. Sir Edmund Black is in the house. Look at all these people. Lars, what's going on, Lars? Lars, by the way, thank you for snagging that merch. Lars posted a couple of photos on Instagram. He got that unmuted merch, bro. It's very sexy. Bearded Piercer, what's going on? Robert Gorilla, Cozy, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It always fucks with me when you say good afternoon because it's 10:30. RamiLebmetal.com, what's going on? Look at you guys. Thank you guys for coming out. We have a very special episode today of the podcast, and we're gonna activate the ask a question. I know a lot of you guys already sent us messages on Discord. You guys have questions. You guys are very interested in today's guest, and let me just turn that on. Actually, I'll turn it on right now. Pause the questions. There we go. So do interact as much as you possibly can. If you have a question, dump it in the box, and we'll get to it as soon as possible. And enjoy the show. For those of you that are new here, my name's Adnan, and on this show we talk about motivation, inspiration, and all things creative with a bunch of interesting people from around the world. And today we have Mike Gaspar. Seventh Storm is been brewing. You guys, there's a bunch of show. I'm gonna show you. There's a bunch of teasers and stuff. But you guys previously know him from Moonspell, also like a 30-year run. So we have a ton to cover. So we're gonna hit the intro. We're gonna go and get our guest in here. You guys ready for this? Hit the intro. Welcome to the show, Mike. How's it going?
How you doing, man? It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. This is a whole new world to me. You were just explaining how Twitch works, and I was saying how you can sold it. Like I'm super interested now and to see how all this interactive stuff works with the fans. Because definitely that's been the most important thing for me throughout the whole career. Has always been in touch with the fans, and that's what I miss the most. Just hanging out.
It is absolutely crazy the massive jump in interactivity when it comes to the technology these days. It blows my mind, and I've been doing this for a while, so I can only imagine. Pull that headphone back a bit. It's so disturbing to see that thing on your head without the hair. Hey man, listen, Sir Edmund Black. We don't talk about this. Tlepesh, thank you for the follow. But Mike, thank you for being here, man. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, but we like to start these podcasts the same way for everyone. And I like to say I gave you a tiny bit of an intro before we hit the intro music, but in your own words, if you were to introduce yourself to the tribe, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, most of you know me as Mike, drummer of Moonspell, my ex-band. But before that, I'm just a huge music lover. Metal's always been, that main obsession. I'm that kind of guy that, sometimes you don't even know I'm in a band because I'm usually hanging out with everyone else. And I just love going to shows, just being as normal as possible. I have a huge career. I hope to continue having some of that career back with this new band. But people that know me, I think the thing is that I'm really down to earth. And I just love listening to people's stories. I think that's me. Yeah.
And that's a quality that not a lot of people can maintain 30 years into a touring, especially in the rock and metal world. A lot of people I talk to are just like, listen, man, get me out of here. Like 30 years into it, but you've maintained that passion, that love. And I did a bit of research for the podcast. I listened to some interviews. I read some articles. You're not kidding. You're a fan first, always.
Always, that was always my thing, man. Like when I would do the big festivals, most bands are like excited. Oh, I'm gonna play that festival, or I have this position. We're playing the main stage. And I'm like, dude, Black Sabbath is playing. The Merciful King Diamond's gonna play. All these great bands that I always wanted to see that never played in Portugal. And that was an opportunity for me to. For me, it was like I get to see free shows. That was basically like I get to play, I get paid for it, I have catering. I get a pass, VIP pass to go everywhere. This was always my, the way I saw things. Like there was some like grass pop. Each time I played grass pop, when I was done, usually I always have a tech, break everything down, make sure everything's secure. But then I'm going into the audience, man. I'm out of here, and I'm drinking beers with everybody. I'm talking, seeing old friends. For me, it's kind of like a ceremony. It's like going to a wedding. Going to because that's where the passion came from as a young kid. Like many people know, or you don't know, I was born in the States and I moved to Portugal when I was 12 in '88, and it was very depressing for me at the time because America was so into hard rock. You had MTV, you had so many things going on. It was exciting, and I come to Portugal and there's like 2 channels on the television. There's there aren't many things to do. I had no friends. I didn't even understand Portuguese that well. But I had one main thing. I live in an area called Cascais, and that was the mecca of metal shows back in the 80s. And all the bands would come here, like Iron Maiden, Slayer, Sepultura. I saw all the White Snake, which was my first show back in 1990, with Tommy Aldridge and Steve Vai. It was that magical formation, and just going with my friends and discovering all that and seeing finally live music, just stayed with me forever. And that kind of commitment, that's the only reason I wanted to be in the band. I just wanted to give that to others. I wanted to give that experience to other people, and this is still my attitude and philosophy today. When I see a great band, I just want to get on stage. I don't want to be better than you. I just want the show to go on. I just want to be part of it. And I think that's the beauty of it.
So what was the very first band that made you go, that's the thing I want to do. That's where I want to be?
Well, yeah, like I was saying, I started listening to music in America. I was maybe 6. I was already banging on pots and pans in the kitchen. My mother telling me to shut the fuck up. And around, 7, 8 years old, I discovered Van Halen. And Van Halen for me, for a time, especially with David Lee Roth, it was those magical years. And, it opened up a lot of doors for me. But then right after, because, you're a kid and everything's so fast, you think things take forever to go by. But in reality, we're talking maybe about a year. It was Motley Crue. And that was the main band. Everybody knows me, at least if you met me when I was a teenager, when I moved to Portugal. I had the back patch in red velvet that said Motley Crue, girls, girls, girls. and all their albums, even today. Like I went through an extreme black metal, death metal phase, of course, in the early days with the band. And I kind of ignored hard rock. I'm not listening to hard rock anymore. But then I hit my 20s. I'm what the hell am I talking about? And I just had this. I was on tour. I think I was in Germany, right in front of the Century Media building an office back then. They just come back from a tour. And there was a CD shop right in front of when there used to be CD shops. And I don't know, I just had this huge urge. I just walk in and I buy every single CD I saw of Motley Crue. The stuff I used to listen to, Cinderella, Poison. I'm I don't care. I loved this when I was a kid. And it stayed until now. I have it just opens more, the creativity in the genre. There was a time where you can only listen to death metal, you can only listen to black metal. You weren't true enough. That's poser. And it's all ridiculous, man. Those are the bands that influenced, everybody probably. All starts with, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, all these, even the Beatles. If you listen to the stories of, Lemmy and Ozzy, they were Beatles fans. That's what they listened to. That was the popular thing back then. And they look at the music that they made, they influence until this day. And I'm the same. I'll go listen to rap right now. I have a friend that has a show here in Cascais, a radio show. 105.4 Venice Beach. And his show is so amazing because, he mixes extreme metal with hard rock. And that's so rare these days to listen to. And he brings back the best memories of when I was a kid. I think this happens to all of us. As we get older, we start to remember what used to make us happy. We're trying to find, those magical moments because, with age and the grinding of life, you start to lose track of
the chat knows. They always make fun of my. I have a little bit of gray hair, but that's not. It's not the grinding of life.
We're still young. I'm 45. They say the 40s are the new 20s. So let's see if that's true.
100%. 100%. But we do always talk about, this is a subject that we always talk about on the show because we discuss a lot of music, and the show started in a way where I was trying to showcase a lot of music from the Middle East because they just don't get enough spotlight, generally speaking. And we started showcasing bands and discussing their upbringings and their genres and stuff. And I slowly started finding out that some people might not even give a band a chance just based on the label. Like, where does this fall under? Oh, I just, it's death metal. Oh, I don't like death metal. I only like black metal. Yeah. And I always thought, like, isn't being a rock and metal punk hardcore about not being in a box? Like, I always tell people, like, it's we come from a culture, or we stick to a culture that's basing itself around fuck conformity, and then you're like, oh, if you're not wearing this particular shade of black, you're not cool enough. It's one of the weirdest things that happens in rock and metal.
Yeah, that's always been weird to me also. Like, it comes back to, like, when I was a teenager, the fact that I was so into different kinds of music, like, gothic music, punk, hardcore. There are so many bands that I love. Like, I'll listen to anything. It's like, I usually tell people, if you play it, I'll listen to it. The thing that irritates me the most is like these days, of course, the electronic stuff, the DJs. I'm not against anything in life. Come on, one piece for everyone. If that's your thing, go for it. But to see somebody actually play an instrument, that's my thing. I want people to play an instrument. I want people to jam together. So it doesn't matter what style of music you're doing. If it has attitude, if it has passion, it's so rare these days. Nobody wants to learn an instrument. But going back to my times in Portugal, there was this one small bar in Lisbon in Portugal, it was called Gingão. And it was the only place where they let us play some metal music or punk or hardcore, because the owners were really old and they just wanted to sell beer. So they didn't really care who showed up. And
sounds exactly like here.
It was a small street. That place closed down years ago. And everybody would get along, because we knew it was so rare and so difficult to find a place that we could listen to, to alternative music. And it was the same in school. Like, I had friends that listened to Mucky Pop. I had friends that listened to, Bauhaus or whatever. And like, from a distance, if you were with my mother, we all wear black. Some would put their hair up, some would put it down. But basically from a distance, we all look pretty much the same. Of course, the punks like putting the needles or whatever through their noses, and the metalheads, it was more of the earrings or you wearing all the patches and having the vests. But it was like a tribe kind of feeling, and that's why I think what gave me a lot of at least musical experience when it came to even like when it comes to playing drums or when I'm working on songs. Like you were saying, I always think out of the box. There's no rules for me, especially with the career I had and the kind of music I made. That's what made us successful. That's what made us known. It was mixing different styles of music, especially metal and gothic. And that has a lot to do with the story I'm telling now, because we came from a community where everything was so limited. So we had to, and somehow we always ended up showing up at the same place. Even where you wanted to buy a metal shirt, all the punk kids or hardcore kids would go to the same store because that's where they would sell the same shirts. For everyone. We couldn't order them online or anything. Of course, you had some catalogs like ENP or some catalogs, some magazines in America, but then you would order it, and a lot of people would get ripped off. It wasn't the same as it is today. You can get anything you want these days on the internet. It's insane. And so there was a sense of community, the tape trading, or like everybody would ask me to record albums for them. That was a thing that we would do. Just buy a cassette, give it to me, and I'll record. I was with a few people in Portugal that actually had a double deck. I had come from America, so I had a double deck. So of course I made many friends back then. And I was always recording tapes and cassettes for everyone. And most kids these days don't even know what a tape is. And you would have not many albums at home because you couldn't afford to have like 1,000 albums. You would buy maybe once a month. So you would listen to that one album like all day, every day. So you would know that album in and out. I'll never forget when I had Kill 'Em All from Metallica. And I had this vacation with a good friend of mine. I was maybe like 13 or 14. That was the only cassette we had. We listened to that tape all week, night and day. And that would be impossible these days, with the options that you have with just go on Spotify. And it was limited because we didn't have much money. And even if you did have money, the import, you understand this perfectly. Like, Portugal is very similar, to Dubai for sure. Like you couldn't get stuff, even if you did have money. But there was no. It was just only the popular albums that you would try and find. There were some people that had like underground shops where we would hang out. That was the best part. Like you would go to these underground shops, just the more extreme people would show up there. You buy fanzines, and then the whole tape trading. I was also involved in some fanzines back then in trying to. I actually did interviews with bands, and I would type it up. And I'm saying I was probably like 14, 15 years old. And I was already part of this movement because I really wanted to, to get, different styles of music. At the time, it was more black metal, of course, and death metal. And I wanted these bands to get known. It was something that we treasured so much. I was sick of what you would listen on the radio. I was sick of, the normal people's mentality.
This is something that I'm always curious about for people like yourself that do that, because I grew up that way. I grew up in Jordan, and back in Jordan when I was preteens and teenager, I tried to start doing exactly what you're saying, podcasts. We did this thing called Sick and Raw Records, where we would contact people from around the Middle East and be like, if you send us your songs and we send you ours, we promise to record it, or we'll burn it on CDs and give it out at shows if you promise to do that in your own city, in your own country, so we can have this Middle Eastern rock and metal scene. And but what is it about? Because not a lot of people, there's a ton of people in the scene. A lot of people just listen to, the couple of big bands. They wear the Metallica t-shirt and they're good to go. What is it that drives you to be like, I want to get this music out there? Because that's a very unique perspective when you're, especially when you're a kid and starting out in a scene that isn't that very big.
Well, for me, it was that acceptance that I had from most of the metalheads. Like I was saying, like I came from the States and I felt like I was lost, and it was the metal community that thought that I was cool because I was so young. I had this amazing, hard rock collection coming from the States. I was really involved. I wanted to participate. And another thing that was good back then, there were many drummers with the drum kit. So I actually got a lot of people wanting to try me out, even though I wasn't, a metal drummer yet. I was still like playing more hard rock stuff. But that acceptance, like I feel like I was adopted. And it still today, that feeling of acceptance, just gave me, all the energy to take these bands and show. But you show your best friends. That's how it starts. Like you have a friend that's listening to Metallica, and he's like, "Come on, okay, Metallica's cool, but have you ever listened to Samael? Have you ever listened to Tiamat? Have you ever listened to?" So many, Cannibal Corpse, Desultory, Dissection, so many bad, Grave, Unleashed, especially those Century Media days. And that's another thing, when you discover a label that you like, Century Media, that was, not only, I was so proud of being part of that label and having my best albums released by that label, but it was more than that. I was on the label that had my favorite bands. Those bands were amazing. And there was when you got to know the label at the time, the way they treated the bands, the way they promoted the bands, this honor, this respect. They would put them all at the same level. They would promote them all equally. It wasn't like, oh, I like this band more, so I'm going to put more effort into this one. No, every release had, every magazine, they tried to give some kind of balance. Of course, when some other bands got bigger, they had, of course, more bigger pages on the magazines and more investment, but that's normal. But in the beginning, which is the most important when you're starting, they weren't pushing. Labels where they do that, these stories of labels where it's like, if you don't sell, we're going to drop you, or if you have no attention, we're not going to care. You actually have people that believed in your music, and another thing you were saying that we come from, different places in the world. That was another thing that I loved about Century Media. They started, signing bands that came from odd countries. Back then, like all the bands, they came from the States, they came from England, they came from Germany, Sweden, Scandinavia in general, Finland later on, explosion of the amount of bands that come from Finland. And that's great. And I love it. Like most of my friends come from these countries. Most of the bands that I toured with, like I must have toured with hundreds of Scandinavian bands, because there was no band coming from Dubai. I had no band coming from Spain or France. We have Gojira now, but how long did it take for Gojira to show up? Now we had our friends Lacuna Coil that we took on tour, back in the beginning, actually the late 90s. And of course they became popular, but how many other bands came after that from Italy? They don't know that many bands. Spain, there's not one, because most of the bands from Spain speak in Spanish. The same with South America. You go to South America, one of the biggest metal crowd ever, the dedication, the love for music. How many bands coming from South America do people know? Besides Sepultura, Brazium, they come from Brazil. But Comic-Con, is it Comic-Con that comes from Mexico that I heard recently? I'm not saying the name right, but it's so rare. I know more bands because I would play there, and some of these bands would play in Spanish, and I always thought it was cool. But in general, like internationally, it was always hard to stand out. And I think Century Media and some other labels back then, of course, Nuclear Blast, and I don't know what came later. Now you have Seasons of Mist, also, of course, Napalm, my later label. They try a bit more to get bands that are that come from the same countries. And I think that turns the metal scene more exotic, and it becomes and it's healthier to have. Yeah. But it's still difficult. Like, how many bands do you know coming from Portugal still? 30 years have passed. It's kind of like, and it's not just because I was one of the biggest bands, and it's not because I have a new band now, but I always thought this. Like at the time in the 90s, I was certain that we were going to be like the next Sweden or Finland. That so many other bands would come after us, and that was frustrating for me, because then I'd come back from all these tours, and you want to talk to other bandmates or from other bands that had the same experience, but there was nobody with the same experience. And it's still a bit like that today. You can't like relate, and you close yourself in this box, and then people make you like this big rock star, or some people make you horrible because they're conceited or what makes you so special. So you get a little lost in the middle. I didn't like. So what do you end up doing? I would ended up staying at home, going to the studio. I had my small amount of friends or people that I used to go to school with, but you don't have that healthy interaction with other bands, because a lot of these other bands, unfortunately, were also very frustrated because they never got that opportunity. How many friends I have from Portugal that never had the opportunity that I had? They never did even one single tour outside of their own country. And so many bands feel the same pain around the world, because I've been there. Like every country I would go to, there was always a local band. Yeah. I would see it in their eyes that that passion, that eager to conquest, and thinking that like, oh, we're gonna play with these guys, and it's we're gonna go on tour next. And everybody thinks that. We thought the same. We thought, oh man, we're just gonna support the next big band that comes to Portugal, and it's gonna happen. And how many American bands supported me throughout these years, and it didn't happen. It's always a small percentage, even for America, which is one of the biggest markets. So how is that even going to happen in countries, You know, if you come from Russia, if you come from Kazakhstan, but the fans are there. You know, and that's what I've learned. The fans are everywhere. I have stories from everywhere. Never forget going to Turkey and having so many people come, you know, flying from Iran to see us in Istanbul. Or even then, I remember having fans in America coming from Syria, all over. I remember this one fan that came from Egypt to see us in Croatia. And the guy was crazy. He was on fire, that dude. and I relate so much to this because Portugal was like that back then also, because it was so rare to have metal shows here. We had the dictatorship until '74, so the first couple of real shows were in the late '70s, and people would go wild. And it was the same in the '80s when I came in. This was like South America back then. People would just mosh. You know, people would mosh during sound check. That's how excited they were. You don't see that too often. And it's kind of sad these days because things have mellowed out. You know, a lot of countries, they're so used to shows, and it's like going to the cinema. They go in, they buy their popcorn, they see their show, they go home.
This is one of the biggest parallels I think we have in common is that this place, the Middle East. I mean, I'm originally from Iraq. I'm from Iraq for everyone that's in the States listening. And I grew up in Jordan, and I moved around the Middle East, and now I ended up in Dubai. But I've come from these places, like in Jordan. There's a bunch of people in the chat. I could see Tlepesh is in the chat. Junior is from Lebanon. Like we grew up where if you wore the wrong T-shirt, you can get taken in for questioning. Like a Slayer T-shirt can get you arrested.
I know. I have fans that would tell me these stories. That's something that I try to tell other people. I try to transmit, like, how, you know, in some, you don't have the freedom to listen to metal in some countries. I'll never forget this guy from Turkey. He was way older than me back in the 90s. He was telling me how in the 80s he would get a straitjacket and send him to the funny farm for listening to metal. Like, what? How is that possible? As you just mentioned now, I had fans that you have the religious police. You know, if you have long hair, if you wear metal shirts, you can get arrested. When we played Morocco's in Casablanca the first time, I think we were the second metal band ever to play there. The first one I think was Creator. And it was amazing. It was outdoors, 10,000 people going nuts. But the group of friends, I tell this story to a lot of people. I'm like a metal dictionary man, because this is what I live for. I love to share these stories, not my stories, but everyone's stories. Everybody wants to a little bit and be part. That's why I think the metal community is so cool, and what people go through to make shows happen, to bring their favorite bands to their country, especially countries like ours with more difficulties like Morocco's. But the story was, it's perplexed for me. If you come from a normal society, like these kids were arrested because they made a rock show, and they were put in the same cell as killers and rapists. And I was like, you kidding me? Just because you did a show? So they were with like hardcore criminals in the same cell. And then in the end, I think that actually these hardcore criminals were afraid of them because they were associated to metal or something.
Yeah, they just if they lump you in with Satanism over here, you're cleared. No one will touch you.
That was the thing. And I remember going to the mosques in Casablanca. And these mosques, because we weren't Muslim, we couldn't go in. I've been in a couple in Istanbul, but they wouldn't let us in. And then there were all these kids running around, and they were just kids. And they were so, they were happy to see a band, because we were so different. And when I would tour, I would always carry stuff, picks, like pins. I always like to give things out, or like if I find somebody that liked our music, or something to remember. I couldn't carry around sticks because that would be insane. People always would ask me, "Give me a stick." Like, it's a bit hard to carry around sticks, man. Like, it would look like Robin Hood. And so it was always easier to have like pins or picks. And I remember these kids. I started giving pins out. And actually, some of these pins had the pentagrams, or it didn't have like something so cheerful. But they were so happy to get something. And then they all put the pins on. They were running around. They were like showing me their pins, like they felt like they were part of the team. They were part of the the cool kids. And that just made me realize it's all the same. When I was a kid, that's what I wanted. Like my parents, in the south of Europe, are very Christian, and especially the older generation, very closed-minded. Especially my parents. They were immigrants. They stayed a bit in that kind of mentality. And if they saw somebody with long hair or with tattoos or wearing black, it's like, you're a criminal. Like, you're no good. And this is why I was kind of brought up. And we were asking me actually a little while ago what made me have the passion. I think I'm discovering where the passion comes from. Because I fought against that my whole life. Like, when you characterize a person just before what they wear or their... I mean, are you shitting me? And especially people that I respected, that made the most amazing music, that made me go, sometimes I would fall asleep with my Walkman. If you kids out there know what a Walkman is. Put my tapes on, that's how I would fall asleep listening to hard rock. And it just made everything so much easier in my life. Like so many other people. We had a fan, if he's out there, I haven't seen you in years. I remember he was from Serbia, and during the war, he was a kid. And he told me that he listened to our first album hiding underneath his bed while the missiles were, hitting the ground. And that's what made him, got him through those difficult times. And it was music. So how can you how can these people that make such amazing music, just because of the way they look, how can they be evil? It just made no sense to me. And I was a kid. So having, later on my own experience, have stories like this guy from Serbia, it just makes me realize even more how much music is important. And that's what drives me to continue. And that's what always made me, want to play live, especially the live aspect, because that's really the ultimate moment where you're in front of the people. It's not like a recording is a special moment that you record in that time, that era, that year. It stays forever. But to replicate that and to give it to the people, it's that one opportunity. You're right in their face and you're interacting with them. So it's like that. It's that chance to that celebration of that music to to make it happen. So it can go well, it can go bad. Actually. Is that people just want to know you. They want to talk to you. They want something, especially being a drummer, how many times they ask me for drumsticks. They want something to remember those times. And I understand that so well because I was the same. I remember at Iron Maiden shows, if I had caught a stick from Nico McBrain, I would have been the happiest kid ever. Never happened though, so Nico, give me a stick one of these days.
I wanted to go back because you say, you keep talking about when I was a kid and how happy you were supporting that music and stuff, but people tend to forget you guys recorded that demo when you were 15. You guys were on Century Media. I think you were 16 at the time. I mean, that is.
I recorded my first demo. I was 16. I recorded Wolfheart. I was 18. I was the youngest.
I think we're getting some network issues. Let's see if
for demo I was 16.
Sorry, we got some network issues. You got cut out, but you were saying you recorded when you were 16.
I recorded the demo when I was 16. I recorded my first album, Wolfheart. I was 18. The rest of the band was only a couple of years older. I was definitely the youngest. Yeah, I didn't have much of a teenage.
Are we stuck again? I think we're stuck.
And then I was going to, we had just signed a contract with Century Media and we recorded that first album. Then we went on tour and they only stopped last year for me. That was the first time in my life where I spent a year going anywhere. But I was like, I can't believe it. Since I was 16, and I never had a time where I didn't have something programmed. I didn't have a show to do and somewhere to go. And of course, live so much. But on the other hand, after 30 years, because I started playing in bands when I was 13. It wasn't. I had a couple of bands even before, and at such a young age, like I said, in Portugal, finding the drummer was rare. Nobody had drum kits back then. They were too expensive here, and maybe because of the way I already hitter, and also I looked a little bit older. In America, I was a bit big. Really skinny. There was no McDonald's in Portugal, but now it's changed. Now everybody is starting to look as a kid, and that changed. It changed a lot because when you get older, it's like maybe that's why I keep on kid, and it was because memories that I think they get cut out.
Yeah, I think we're getting some interference. Are you back? I think we're back. Back? Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. And I was just mentioning maybe that's why I always talk about me like the kid part, because that's probably like those innocent thoughts that I still have. Because the moment you get into a serious band, you start touring, like everything goes by so quickly. Because you're always traveling. Like we would have nights where we wouldn't sleep. Go straight to the airport, straight to the hotel, straight to sound check. Are you listening?
Yeah. We're still here.
Oh, cool. And so there's a lot of blank parts. So you always tend to remember maybe when you were those early years. Like I used to say, like I have a great memory until I was 30, but from 30 to 40, I don't know what happened. There's a couple of blanks there. It just became way too intense. The touring life, also the partying, of course. Like I'm not going to be lying here. Like when you're in the band, like I was, everything happens. Especially when you go, especially tours in America, you're playing with big bands. Things happen, man. It's part of rock and roll. And when you end up at the end of the tour, like you feel like a trash can. I had sometimes, moments where it took me like a week to get out of the house. I didn't want to see anybody. I was so tired. And socially, it's not the best thing, because of course you have your friends, you have your family. You're always saying no to everybody. Like I can't go to your birthday party, or I can't go out this weekend because I have rehearsals, or I'm too tired, or I have to go on the tour, and I got to be prepared for the tour. So you start to lose, all your closer friends because you're so busy all the time. Finally, you don't have nothing to do, and people, don't even remember you or call you because they think you're too busy and because you're on tour. And it's not like that at all. It's so. If you've been in the band as long as I was, especially playing drums. And for me, it was really the traveling, like the hours and hours of travel, especially coming from Portugal. Because if you're a band from Europe and if you do European tours or European festivals, it tends to be easier because if you're in the middle of Europe, you just rent a bus and you go. But anything you would do coming from the south of Europe, you have to catch a plane. You have to get a connection. So I spent my life on planes. I have a lot of friends that are pilots, cabin assistants, and we be.
I think we're getting some more.
Even on buses, sometimes it stops.
Let's.
You're back.
Yeah, there we go. We're back. We the audio was good, but I think the video cut out for a bit.
Was it okay? But it's there, right? Because I think I have good internet here.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. Why is it doing that?
It's the negative energies.
But yeah, you guys in the chat, let us know if anything pops up or you guys missed anything. We can run back a little bit, but there's a couple of interesting questions in the in the question box already, because now we're talking about a long commitment to music, spanning 30 years right now, and Rexter's asking, and given that you started so early, if you never went into the music career, what would you think? What do you think you would have been doing?
Question, because coming from the States, when I all I wanted to do was like, I actually was that kind of like, kind of like that movie, that story, like the high school dropout. I didn't even finish school. I was so young. I didn't have time. Like everyone else was older, so some had managed to finish college or at least high school. I was so young that I said, fuck it. Like I hate coming back to school because I got a tour. I learned more. I was actually taking this music course. I definitely wanted to be a musician. When I was around 17, I was taking this music course, and it was like actually classical percussion, and I had composition classes, music history. I had a bit of everything. And I did that for 2 years. And the first tour I did with Morbid Angel and Immortal, in a van actually, throughout Europe, I remember learning more in that 2 months than the 2 years I was in that school. So I remember coming back and like, no, man. and it wasn't the question of me not wanting to continue the course. I couldn't, because right after that tour, another tour came. Right after that tour, another album came, which was Irreligious, by the way. And actually that album, the story, some people find it fascinating. For me, it was just like normal because I had to do it. I came off a tour. I went straight from the tour bus, from that tour that ended. I went straight into the studio to record Irreligious back in '96, and we had rehearsed the album, some weeks before that tour, and there was just no time, because we were already, the tour ended near Germany or in Germany, so the studio was there in Hagen. Valdemar was already waiting. I had my friend Maka, which is an amazing drummer. He played with. He recently was playing with Sodom. He was the original drummer of Despair, which was the band of Robert Kampf, which was the owner of Century Media. So there's a lot of history there. They were great friends with Valdemar, of course, and he was there, with his, waiting for me with setting up the drum kit. And I got there ready to record. And I think that's maybe the magical thing back then. Like maybe you didn't think too much about it. You didn't plan it too much. You just had to do it. And immediately after, the album exploded. We had a lot of, interest, and we did a mega tour. I'm 20 now, and I'm already on my 5th, 6th tour. I don't know, on my 2nd album. Yeah. And I'm on tour with Samael and with Rotting Christ for over 50 shows, in a bus with over 20 people. There was no I had my bed. They put so many beds in the small space that we had. Usually it's just like 2 beds, maybe max 3. They had to fit in so many people in that space in that bus that my board was like this. So I couldn't turn around when I was sleeping. I had to go out like to the side. And especially there was a heating system. It was right next to me. If I touched it, I would burn my hand. It was so hot. Actually, I think I ended up sleeping in the lounge on the sofa for over a month because I couldn't handle that. It became super claustrophobic. I couldn't even be in that bus. But it was great with the stories, the shows. Anybody that saw that tour, I bet you that they said it was amazing, because just the energy that you felt between these 3 bands back then. Because we were all fans. I was a huge Samael fan. I loved Rotting Christ. I have the funniest stories from that tour, especially Greek and Portuguese together, and a Swiss band in the middle. They were more experienced. They had done more tours. Actually, I felt bad for Samael because we were kids. We were doing a lot of stupid stuff on the bus. And looking back now, like, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. But we had a lot of fun. But this just to say that tour ended, over 50 shows. We had a week or 2, I think. And we had one of the best, moments in my life that I treasure to now. We supported Typo Negative on the October Rust tour in Europe.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, I went from a demo in 93 and I'm in 96. 3 years passed and I'm touring with not one of the biggest bands at the time. They had their tour manager was Mike Gaspar at the time, which was the tour manager of Motley Crue. So I'm actually like, being a Motley Crue fan. And then, the production manager had worked with Van Halen, the drummer, the drum tech, I had worked with like Skid Row. They were all like, super experienced. Of course, these days, maybe, it's not nothing special. But for me at the time, that was super special. And then the best part for me is meeting the keyboard tech, which was the son of Mick Mars, which was the guitar player of Motley Crue. And I'm like, oh, come on, are you shitting me? And he was a super nice, dude. We hanged out. I haven't seen him in years, of course. I just love those moments. I love the stories that he told me. Later on, the movie came out about Motley Crue. There was a lot of stuff there that like I knew from talking, talking with him. And those are the, like I said, those are the things that that made me excited about going on tour. So I get to talk to everybody. I got to like, when I was a kid, listening to these bands, I get to be with the people that were actually there. Like, if you're a metal fan, I mean, what better is that? Like, I don't have to see no documentary. I was part of it, and I think that's what my legacy is a strong word. I don't think I want to use that, but I think that's part of my gift to myself, is to be able to have these stories and share these stories and be part of this amazing movement. And that tour, we were playing for over 5,000. Sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say the word for me that I would use is journey, because
journey, great word. I have a huge journey. That's right.
It's not stopping. You're still on that road. There's a whole ton more that's coming up, and that there's we did dive into the past a lot. I see Robert just wrote in the question box. It says, "This is not a question. Can I thank Mike for recording a Religious and Opium? They are on my all-time favorite list for the last 25 years." And I think that's why it's a journey, because there are people like Robert in the chat and people around the world that have been part of that massive collective that you guys built, this thing that you built literally from the ground up when you guys were young teens, and the experience that comes with that, like you were saying, the journeys, the tours and all that stuff. But what I wanted to dive into, and there's a couple of questions about record labels and stuff. We'll get to those in just a minute, guys. We'll when we start talking about a little bit of the future, but kind of to segue into that. How difficult is it having built this thing 30 years or 28 to be precise, and starting something brand new after all of that? Before we dive into the technical stuff, just how hard was it for you kind of navigating those things?
Yeah, it was and how can I put this? Now things are better, but at the time I felt like I was drowning. That's how I really felt like. It's like I had nowhere to turn to. But then at the same time, this whole thing, this COVID thing explodes all over the world. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm locked down at home. I had this huge career. I did everything I dreamed of. And people are suffering. People are dying. People are scared. There's no shows. There's no nothing. You can't see your parents, your grandparents. I have a daughter that's, she was maybe 3, or she was 3 at the time. She just turned 5. And I'm like, what's her future going to be? She's not going to be able to play with her friends. And she's just going to be obsessed with germs and being sick and wearing masks. I'm like, what life is this? And that it just really hit me strong. And I'm like, come on, I'm lucky. Look at all these new bands, or these guys that just got the opportunity of their lives to play in the band that they dreamed of. Like, I have so many friends I could mention right now. They get that spot that they were waiting for their whole life, and everything stops. They can't go on tour. They can't play. They can't. They're isolated. Some people start doing streams. I spent most of my life locked down anyways. I was always on the bus. I was always in the backstage. I was always in the studio. When I wasn't doing that, my off time, I was in the gym, because, some people know I became a Taekwondo teacher, and I've always dedicated a lot of time in the gym. I was a personal instructor for a while, and that was always like a balance I needed, so I could, so it'd make it easier. The time I was on the road gave me always a lot of confidence. And I've always, as in music, the sports is the same. I like to help people. I like to help people with their health. With their, I've had students where they had the accidents and they couldn't move their legs, and I showed them how to slowly gain muscle, gain mobility, gain confidence. And it's the same thing I do with martial arts. Even with, I have a crazy story with Barney from Napalm Death. We were on tour together, and he had this bad knee, because of the way he sings. He puts all that pressure on that knee. And I showed him with a simple, those elastic, strings that we use in the gym. I just showed him how to warm up his knee before each show. And I don't know if it was that or maybe a miracle. Actually, it worked for him. And when he played in Portugal, he actually thanked me live, for helping him out with his knee. So maybe I may have a future there. Maybe I can be a personal fitness instructor for metalheads. You never know, because I can tell metal stories and help you with your health. But so that's something that's always, of course, always been. So I was thinking, younger, what are they going to, especially if you're a teenager, just start going out, just start dating. You can't do anything. Like, I lived my life. I did the impossible, especially coming from Portugal. I was on the best labels. I was on the best tours. I played the best festivals. What do I got to complain about? Maybe money, of course, is a problem, but I was used to not having money. The first years of the band, we didn't have shit. And when you do get money, it takes, sometimes you would work your ass off, and it would always take like months, for you to get paid. So I was always used to also saving up for a rainy day. So I'm like, I'm going to relax. The most important thing for me right now is my family, my health, making, concerned about like all my friends and fans. And I don't like to say fans that much. And for me, they're all friends. So, and actually in some countries, I call them cousins. Because especially South America, I feel like we're all, even there in the Middle East, I feel like, most of you guys I went to school with. there's so many things that we're similar. And so I'm like, what's the most important for me right now? And that was playing again. I hadn't played drums for 6 months. And finally I got this band together. We did one rehearsal. And when I got behind that drum kit, because I was doubting myself, I'm going to tell you the truth. When my ex-band and it was over, I felt like burning my drum kit. I felt like I'm done. Like, I'm not going to make music no more. That's how I felt at the time. But then like all this happened. I got time to think. And I'm like, no, man. I got behind that drum kit and I felt, and I wasn't playing the way I wanted to, of course. But I was like, fuck, man, this is what makes me sweat. I got all red. I had to play with a mask. Because of all the restrictions in the studio, I was like hyperventilating. Like, but I'm sweating, man. I'm alive. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't care if I have to play in a bar for the rest of my life. I'm going to do this. and it started like that, so step by step. The excitement of writing songs again. It's a different position now because there's a lot of pressure on me. Like I say, I'm the center of everything in this band. Because of the experience I had, I'm working with musicians that they're very talented, but never had, never toured like I did, never released albums like I did. But they believe in me. And if they hadn't believed in me, I wouldn't be here right now. And that's what was most important. And like I said, just we get together and we play music. There's no bullshit. There's no, we talk during the day with WhatsApp like everybody does, which is great because we get a lot of the technical stuff out of the way and stuff that we want to do. And then when we were together, there's no business. Like that was the part that was like it's really frustrating for a musician. It's like you end up spending more hours worrying about numbers and, all this stuff that's connected to music. That's not music.
Yeah.
That's not, the essence of, and that's what people don't get sometimes, the fans. They think that you're just together and you're always playing. No, most of the time it's reunions. Of course, interviews are important, but you're just doing a lot of like office stuff. And if you do it for 30 years, and then with all the traveling, it's like the music part becomes this. And that was the most frustrating, for me. So I love this new band because we're very excited about playing. We're in the beginning. And in the beginning is always that time where you're a bit, juvenile. Like you just wanna rock out, man. And I'm showing them like all the steps, the professional steps to get to where we need to be. I call everything a demo. Like the music is a demo. The photos was a demo. It's like, because I did everything at a high level. So for me, things come natural. But if you haven't done it your whole life, like I always have to go back and explain. Maybe that's the part that was always more weird for me. And I have to be patient. Like I always have to explain how things work. Then I end up telling a story. I always get a story from somewhere, from an era. Like, oh, that time, we were in this situation, and things start to make sense. And I think we're growing as a band because it's just Mike's band. But maybe start like that. I want to be equal because I want the music to be equal. I don't want, you're not going to listen just drums. I mean, that's stupid. I don't like bands like that. I don't listen to bands like that. If you don't have an amazing vocalist, amazing guitar player, amazing solos, bass, I'm out. I'm not going to be listening to it. I'm not going to be into it just because of the drums. I'll go to a drum workshop for that. And I like music. That's my main thing. Like I said, I like the collective. I like the chemistry. I talk about that a lot with the band, like the chemistry, how we make the music. And I always tell them, let's save some energy when we get to the studio, to have the opportunity for new ideas to appear at the moment, because it's a moment. It's a magical process. Let's live it, because maybe in the past everything was so quick and I was so young. Maybe I didn't live it the way I should have. Maybe I didn't, acknowledge, what I was doing. Because sometimes it's hard. Like you were mentioning, you're religious. People thank me for that album, such an amazing album, but it was all so quick, and it's like I didn't get to enjoy it. Yeah. Maybe only some years down the road. So I'm trying to make sure that I enjoy it this time. That I take my time. That the songs have time to breathe and to grow as them. Actually, they're actually all growing to here, by the way, because they're all. That's also like another metal story. That's pretty. It's those cliches. Of course, these days you don't have to have long hair to make metal. But it was funny how everybody has they all have normal jobs, and the first thing is okay, well, image is a big thing, so everybody just started growing their hair immediately, taking this really seriously, and telling me that this is what they want to do with their lives, that they would love to be musicians full time, and they keep on telling me this is going to happen, Mike, and I'm old school, and I'm always I don't know, guys, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I hope so. And at least we're going to have a great time through this adventure.
There's two things I want to dive into, because you're talking about that work ethic and that drive and trying to figure out the new scope of things, and we definitely have questions enough for that even in the question box. There's a ton of people I know in the chat that are from this side of the world that are working hard and up and coming musicians. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that want to get your perspective on this as well. But there's one thing you said that resonates with me, is that when the pandemic hit and you looked at your daughter and you're thinking, what's she going to grow up with, masks and sanitizer, hand sanitizer, all that stuff. I had a 3-month-old, my first 3-month-old when the pandemic hit. And I don't know what it is. The way you were explaining it, it kind of resonated with me, because I got more drive to go out and do something that I wanted to do versus stick around. Because I had a similar situation where I was like not necessarily doing what I wanted to do, and then I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do for a little while, and everything was going to shit. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know, this is it. I give up. This is going to be the shittiest situation in the world. But looking at that kid, I was like, you know what? Maybe if I fight for it and I find a way to achieve some of my goals, it'll be better for him. Like in the long run, it'll be better for him. At least he won't be surrounded by, you know, the masks and the sanitizers, and also a grumpy piece of shit that doesn't want to go to work or doesn't like what he's doing. You know what I mean? So that really resonated with me. I had the same kind of reaction. I was just like, you know, I'm gonna fight harder for this now.
Yeah, you have to, man. I mean, the children, I think, after having such a big career, and I became a dad at 40, like having your own child, like, I mean, it's another world, man. It's like it's the best thing that can happen to you. There's a lot that comes with it. Like now she's on vacation, and I'm fighting with my daughter every day. Like she demands so much of me. She wants so much from me. And if I gave so much, like on tour and the albums, and like I have to do the same now for her, as much as I probably prefer doing something else sometimes, because it does become hard, you know, especially with the tantrums, and they start crying out of nowhere and you don't even know what's wrong because they want something. What do you mean? What do you want? Like you have everything, but you have to calm down, breathe. And all parents, you know, you just have to really calm yourself down. I started taking her to Taekwondo this week because she's on vacation. My master told me to bring her, and like I don't show it at the time, but I'm looking at her and she's already training with me. And that was what I dreamed of, you know, most of my life, and it's happening. I'm like, whoa, man, that's one of the most amazing achievements I think I can have in my life, is to have my daughter do things that I like to do. Or when she picks up my drumsticks, I don't have to tell her anything. She picks up my drumsticks and she starts drumming. Sometimes she starts, you know, playing in the car, and I don't do anything. She's just doing it because maybe she knows that's what Daddy does, and maybe she wants to impress me. Don't impress me all you want, honey. Well, I hope she plays better than me. And I feel the same for other kids. You know, like I started giving drum lessons, you know, especially after the pandemic, everything's closed, trying to get, you know, of course it helps having some kind of income, but it's always something that I love doing. I didn't have time before. I always wanted to show, you know, kids, and not just kids, I have also adult students, you know, especially coming from Portugal, there aren't many musicians that have had the experiences that I have. Not that I'm the best teacher or the best drummer, of course, but I've seen a lot. You know, I've worked with the best producers. I've played in the best studios. I've played alongside the best bands and, you know, best drummers you can think of. Especially, you know, my first tour was with Pete Sandoval from Morbid Angel. It was like, whoa, this is my first. And he gave me great compliments down the road. Like that's another thing that when we think of achievements and we talk about my journey, is to like you get off a show years later, and not just Pete Sandoval, but I remember David Vincent, the vocalist of Morbid Angel. We were on tour with Opeth, and he comes down in Florida to see us. And after the show, I was still sweating in the bus, and he comes into the bus and just you know, congratulates me on the show and my drumming. Like, whoa. I was like speechless, like, oh, why are you saying this? Like, I don't get it. Like, and the same with with Pete Steele from Type O Negative. Like, he would come and see us in Brooklyn. He one time he sat me down on the bus, just me and him, and he gave me advice, you know, on the music industry, advice about life. Do you know how amazing that is? Not only being a fan, to be able, you know, to transmit that experience to other people. He's not around no more, man, and I miss him like hell. Like one of my best friends is Portuguese. He lives in Brooklyn. Was Pete Steele's best friend. You know, we talk about him almost every day. He left so much behind, so much art. He was so creative. He was such an amazing person. He was always a jokester, man. He was always joking around. and he was so humble. People maybe don't know this about him. He was he was a giant, but also his heart was giant, and that's fading away. People like him are each time more rare. If you become successful or famous, the egos start popping up. You lose reality. Sometimes I have a friend in Portugal. And people were surprised. What do you mean you chatted with him? Well, you were really with him? You really talked to him? Like, well, yeah. I mean, why shouldn't Why shouldn't you talk to me? What makes me so special that I can't talk to you? I can't hang out. I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Like hide in the castle in Portugal? Or like the black metal scene. Most of the American fans thought that the black metal band walked around Norway with face paint and with swords and lived in castles. I mean, come on, guys.
I love there was this Alice.
It's nice to have that.
There was this Alice Cooper clip where I forgot what band he mentioned, but one of the black metal guys from Norway came up and was like, "Hey, Alice Cooper, like I just wanted a signature. You're very influential on us, and I grew up listening to your music. My parents like it." And Alice Cooper goes, "What band are you from?" And he showed him the band, and he goes, "Wait, don't you guys like slaughter pigs and kill people?" He's like, "No, I'm just a dude." I always thought that was hilarious. Yeah. Like even Alice Cooper was like, "Hey, these guys are scary."
Scared. We went through that. Like, if we were in the black metal scene, even us, we had like our first shows. We tried to get some pig heart and work out, man. There's some bands now that they carry their own blood. Or I found recently on one of my last tours, like they have to have the refrigerator, but it looks good, man. I mean, I was into it when I was young, so I went through the whole phase of even, we would even cut ourselves and do all crazy shit. And I'm not gonna, it's if you like it, if it works. I mean, imagine the first time people saw Kiss with the makeup and Gene Simmons with the blood, with the tongue. Imagine what people thought back then.
Exactly.
It must have been crazy. So times have changed, and I'm the kind of generation where I like to see a show. Like I don't want to go to see someone that looks like he just got out of bed, or like he doesn't care. Like I like production, and I think that's part of the magic. Especially if I always think of the younger generation. Like, what are they gonna think? Unfortunately, you don't see that many younger. Like it looks like the metal scene is turning into people like 30s, 40s and above. There was a show in Belgium, one of the last festivals I did maybe 3 years ago. There was a guy that was turning 70 years old, I think, that day, and he was moshing. So, man, I think metal is, and this friend of mine from Brooklyn, like I was saying, he goes to these studios. And he was telling me a couple of days ago, like in 7 studios in this big complex in New York City, not one of the bands were younger than 40. And that's like, whoa, that's really scary, man. That we're not doing the proper job of incentivizing the younger generation to get bands and do stuff. And it's technology. Like I see it with my daughter. Like she can't have an iPad. She can't have my phone. I mean, she turns into a zombie immediately.
Yeah.
And there's the whining of wanting it. And then when you take it away, like I call it, it's like crackheads. I call this crack for kids. I really do. This is what I call it. Because when you take it away, you better run, man. Like when she was younger, she would lose her shit. And finally, I'm at the point where she barely uses it, which is really hard. It's only special occasions, like if I go out to a restaurant, which I couldn't anyways because of the pandemic. But I went to my first restaurant with my wife this Monday. Because actually, during the week now here in Portugal, you can go inside the restaurant. On the weekends, you can't unless you have, your vaccination certificate, which I already have, but she doesn't. So I have to go during the week, which is kind of stupid. Which is like, so there's only COVID on the weekends. They have COVID during the week.
Yeah, well, here we have here we have the COVID goes to bed. So after 9, you can't congregate. But yeah, COVID comes out at night. But before that, it's all good. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, here Here only 2 weeks ago, we stopped with the restrictions of 10:30. 10:30, no, sorry, 11. You can only be out until 11. You have to be home by 11. And we were like this for months. So now people like are trying to enjoy as much as they can this month of August. We're getting tourists, not as much as we used to. Portugal is a very tourist country, as you know. Like normally every summer we'd have like 20 million people visit Portugal, and our population is 10 million. So the double of the people would visit this country. So of course, even though we have some tourism this year, from what we're used to, it's really, it's really weak. So everybody that has like establishments, restaurants, especially like the discos and clubs, bars, everyone's really suffering. And some of them are still going to have to wait until maybe September or October until you can actually do stuff. Like I have a friend of mine that's a DJ. He was telling me today, like even when they open the discos, you can't dance. So you can open the disco to basically just listen to the music and go. You can't go onto the floor and dance.
Yeah,
so
they did that here.
Still a bit weird.
They did that here where you had to have a table, but also you weren't even allowed to stand at the table. You had to be just sat. So it was really weird seeing a club with a bunch of people sat at desks, and anytime anyone would get a little hyper and stand up, security would come and tell them to sit back down.
Sit down. Yeah, it's the same here with shows. Like the few shows that were permitted, it was like maybe 50% of the capacity. The law just came out a week ago, 66% now. But it's still, you have to be on the table, you have to be wearing a mask, you have to sit down. That's why I tell a lot of people, like, fortunately this band, I don't have an album out yet. Hopefully by the next year, which I already told the band, I have to have something out like by 2022, if not I'm going to lose it. And unfortunately, I'll probably only start playing by then. Because if I had to play now for people sitting down with masks after, thousands of shows, the career I had, I think it's going to make me so sad. Because that's the beauty of it. Like I want to see people, moving. Like I want to see people moshing. I want people to have. That's why music exists, is for freedom. So now we're making music and people are confined. It just goes, I prefer to do something else at this moment. Just concentrate on the composition, just like I was saying, these teasers, all the stuff we're trying to do on the internet, giving it time. I go meet people. I had some friends from all over, but this one couple from Switzerland, he follows me. He also plays drums. He loves drums. He would go to every show in Switzerland, and he was only here maybe for 2 weeks on his vacation, and he's from the north of Portugal. It's still a 2.5-hour drive, and he came all the way down to Lisbon to spend the day with me. And I thought he was going to stay here for a while in Lisbon. I didn't expect him to make that long drive just to be with me. And no, he hanged out with me. We had lunch, then he went back home. Like, what? He just came to spend time with me, and he told me, Mike, it was always impossible to talk to you. You guys were like, you do the show, then we couldn't be near you, or just like a quick picture. Then you get in the bus and you go. And yeah, it's right. That my whole life was like that. I never had time to just sit down and hang out and talk and not worry about going somewhere else, or just be able to back home. So this is what I've been doing a lot of this year. There are people that just come and they come near my house, where I go to a cafe, I hang out, we talk. I got this merch thing going on, which was more of friends asking for it, because I thought it was weird to actually make merch and we even have music or an album or a record company. But at the same time, people wanted something. And I thought, well, okay. For me, like with my experience, the best promotion for me will always be merch. Because when you wear a band's shirt, like you're exposing that band to the world. And it's like wildfire. It goes everywhere. So I think that was like really important to at least try. And I'm doing it all myself. Like I make the packages. It's super underground. Like some people think it's crazy, insane. I even thought it was insane after being in big labels and big companies. And now I'm doing the packages myself. But I love it because I send this postcard with the band, and I put a special note, for each person. And most of these people are friends of mine that I know for all these years from all over the world. And it's just, a way to to say thank you, that maybe I didn't have time to in the past. I didn't have that time to have that warmth with these people, and now I have it. Like if you're not in my country, like I talk through Facebook or Messenger or whatever. I said, if you want stuff, I send you stuff. I have friends from Portugal showing up. We spend like a couple of hours chatting, talking, and it's just that passion of talking about music. I also had this other guy. I felt like I was like a teenager again. We were just talking about bands, and we're all in our 40s. We all got kids and families and jobs, and we just want to hang out and talk about metal. Like there's nothing more beautiful than this. And I think a lot of it is because of this confinement, of course. People are desperate.
I want to introduce everyone in the chat and everyone listening to Seventh Storm. We have what I did was I compiled all the teasers.
New song. So I gotta hear this thing.
I compiled all the teasers just so we can check out the journey in the studio and stuff.
That's first radio edit right here.
First radio, awesome. Yeah. No, I just put up a bunch of the clips together so everyone can check them out, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about the difference in experience. There's a lot of questions about labels. There's a couple of questions about using the internet now and how it was now versus back then. But before we move on, we have two questions from two people that are from Lebanon. Actually, Rami from he runs lebmetal.com. Is asking, what are your favorite tracks to play live? And then Sir Edmund Black is saying, what do you remember of your show in Lebanon in 2011? It was a great moment for a lot of us Lebanese scene. For me, it was a privilege to share the stage with Moonspell, a band we all grew up listening to. I was with Hourglass at the time. So Sir Edmund Black was the vocalist of Hourglass. He's in the chat right now and asking you what you remember from visiting Lebanon in 2011.
Well, first of all, I remember the reception, and the people were amazing, and how grateful they were for us to go there, because I know how hard it is to get metal bands, of course, in Beirut. And the first thing I noticed, of course, was the military at the airport, and being a little bit, everybody was a bit like scared of getting in, what was going to happen. But then, in the end, there was, nothing too major happened. We all had our visas, and we went right through. But of course, I noticed immediately, like a lot of control spots throughout the roads, especially religious places. There was a lot of military around. And when you come from Portugal, everything's very relaxed. If you see that much police and military in the streets, you start to worry, like, what the hell's going on? Yeah. And I noticed talking with everyone else that you just get used to it. And that's why I tell people here in Portugal, you know how lucky you have it. Like most of the world these days, it's like the quantity of security there is insane. And I remember one story of a guy that owned, I don't remember his name, but he owned a record store. And he was telling me how black metal bands were forbidden to be sold. And of course, one of our albums, because of Under the Moonspell, maybe our black metal days. So I think all our albums were on that list. You couldn't sell black metal. It was forbidden in his record store. So he tells me the story that in the back he had a refrigerator, and the refrigerator was disconnected. But inside the refrigerator were all the black metal albums, Dimmu Borgir, Bathory, Venom, everything was there. And I just love that story. I also love the food. We went to this, typical Lebanese, we had an amazing lunch. Like I love food and I love cooking. And if there's one thing that I've learned is, all of these flavors throughout the world, I try to recreate at home. And Middle Eastern food is like one of my favorites, of course. And I remember having food and smoking. In Portuguese, we call it shisha.
Yeah, it's yeah.
And another story that now you're making me remember some of these stories. I'm just on the food part. I remember them bringing these yellow things, which is kind of like these beans that you eat, and it was a little salty. And the only place I see that is in Portugal. And I'm like, how do you call that? And he's like, tremoço. I'm like, what? That's how we say it. We say it exactly in Portuguese. It's termos. I'm like, what? And I'm starting to think maybe that's why we call it termosos, because of our Arabian heritage. Because in food, especially in food, we still have a lot in Portugal.
As soon as you said that, by the way, as soon as you said that, the entire chat just went termos. Yes, it's termos.
It's the same word, man. I was like, what? The only difference is that you had like thick salt on top of it. And here it's already in salty water, so we just serve it the way it is. And there's this technique when you eat it to get the skin off. And not everybody in the world knows, man. So this is very rare. So I connected right there, right then and then. Because it's like, I traveled a lot. Like my whole life I've been traveling. I never saw that anywhere. And then I asked the name of it. It's the same name as we do in Portugal. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So the food that was great. The experience was great. I remember everybody being relaxed, because I think we were on the Catholic side. I remember everybody, the women weren't wearing the burqas. They were all, like with their boyfriends, holding hands. Everything was really, it was like a normal. I felt like I was in Portugal, actually. The beaches. And I remember another story of us asking what it was like during the war. And this one guy said, "I was no problem. The missile died and we were on the beach on the other side." Like, okay. So that's how you deal with it. And that just shows how powerful and how strong you are. Like to find some joy in the middle of such chaos. That's one of the sayings I have. Actually, one of the merch stuff I've been doing. Actually, that's the mentality I have with this band. And I think it has a lot to do with not only my past, but also with the Portuguese. Portuguese that can be very grim also. Like it comes from my family, like my father, like he always has to complain about something. It's like nothing's ever right. Like they're always depressed out of their mind. And, if you live already part of this, things are really difficult around them, and they have the ability to be happy and to cherish the good moments. And I want that for myself and for my daughter. I have that hard time too. Sometimes, I'm brought up Portuguese too, like especially with immigrant family. They're always complaining about everything. It's the Latin side of this where it's like nothing's ever right. And sometimes I look for the simplicity in life, and the simple things make me, truly, truly happy. But going back to the show, I remember being on this. It was in the Roman Acropolis or something on the top of the city. I remember that we could see the whole city from the top. I remember that being super beautiful, and to just have that opportunity to play there. I mean, that's what you think I ever thought that I would go there in my life. I never thought I'd even become successful. But to be able to go to places like Beirut or like Morocco's and Casablanca. Like the first time we played Istanbul in the 90s was insane. Like people weren't used to metal bands. I remember the stage, the people were so excited that first show, the stage went back. They pushed it, the PA was falling. And so, I also felt that kind of energy and nothing fell in Beirut and Lebanon, of course, but I felt that kind of energy, felt that kind of love for the music, and I think that's why I remember. We were only there for one day, unfortunately. I remember it being super beautiful. I remember looking from the hotel, seeing the beaches. It's considered the Paris of the Middle East, and I could see that definitely. And I know how tragic it was last year with the explosion. When I saw that, I was like, whoa, man. Because one thing is seeing things on television of places that, you've never been to, you don't know anybody, but when you actually been there and you know people from there, it really touches you in a strong way. And I've been noticing that a lot about myself. And that's what I was very frustrated during the confinement. I wanted to be more in touch with people, not for myself, but for them. Because I know how sometimes just talking to somebody or remembering the better parts of your life in moments that it helps get you throughout life. And if there's something that I love doing, is that it's getting. Let me just gonna turn on the light here in my room.
Absolutely.
It's getting dark here.
It's getting dark, yeah. And I wanted to line up the clips, a bunch of the Seventh Storm clips so we can play it for them. So chat, we're gonna play it right now. Stick around. It's basically the clips from YouTube and from social media that the band has put out. I just compiled them so you guys can check it out if you haven't already. And there's going to be a link in the chat to the Facebook, the YouTube, and the Instagram. So while we're watching this, just go ahead, hit the follow button, and do the things that we do. You know exactly what we're doing. So here we go, and we'll be back for more with Mike right after this. It's about 3 minutes. You guys just stick around, do all the follow stuff.
It's gonna be our hit.
Hell yeah. Here it is.
Hey there, I would just like to introduce the band. We're getting massive support on Facebook and Instagram and whatever is online these days. It's a whole new world for me. But I just want to let you know that from the bottom of my heart, how grateful I am in this new adventure that I have with these amazing people, amazing musicians. Here is Josh Riot on the guitar.
Hey everyone.
We have Ben Stockwell on the lead guitar.
Hey everyone.
We have Butch Sid on bass.
What's up?
And of course, Red on the vocal.
Hey guys.
You might know me, I'm Mike Gaspar. I play drums. We're gonna rehearse right now, so you're invited to watch a little bit. We're gonna have a lot more news, hopefully in the future. And with your support and dedication and believing in metal and music, we're gonna make something great over here. Thanks a lot. Stay metal.
That was a bunch of the teasers, you guys. So, Mike,
Amazing.
we
It looks
were
like a music video.
we got the clap in.
Crazy.
So yeah, we were. That's exactly what we were talking about. It really is a brand new world. Like the very first teaser with you guys in the studio with the masks on. For me, it just
yeah.
it sounds normal to us now, but when you think about all the behind the scenes footage, all the studio footage we've grown up watching our entire lives, that was the very first, this band is recording in the pandemic. Like that hit me as soon as I saw everyone in masks. It kind of took me back.
Yeah, our producer, the Portuguese producer that helped us do the tracking, he actually mentioned that. It's like people are going to look back and they're going to be like, they're going to look up to you guys because you actually tried to make music and record during the pandemic. And I hadn't thought about that. Like for me, it was just normal. Back in my career, I'd go through a fucking wall to do a show. Like there's nothing stopping me. That was always the most sad thing in my life was if I couldn't make a show or if we had to cancel a show. Fortunately, it was very rare. Like I would go always to the end to make sure things would happen, or that song that you dreamt of, or that track, like until I fell from the stool behind the drum kit. Like if the producers told me one more time, I would record it one more time. So for me, it was actually normal. But from that perspective, of course, we're insane to be getting together. Especially at that period in time, we didn't know so much about COVID as we do now. We didn't have the vaccines. Some people were afraid. Our vocalist, after working with us for a month, he got pneumonia. He was sick. And then he actually got COVID. So we were working around this. And sometimes we were like, okay, don't come to the rehearsals and stay at home. So then me and the guitar players would come together. Our bass player has a baby. He's, I think, only 1 year and a half. Also getting sick, and each time he would get sick, is it COVID? So you don't come to the rehearsals, and we'll go maybe the next week we can rehearse with you. Our vocalist also has 2 kids. The older one might have got someone in his classroom got COVID, so then he was worried going to do the tests. Then he would go do tests for himself. I also have a daughter. She'd come back home coughing. They're like, oh shit, she's coughing. She has a cold, which is something so normal in life. And you're just worried. You're freaking out. Is it COVID? Am I going to get sick? The whole school's sick. And we started we're just working around it. Okay, let's go rehearse now. Okay, now nobody's sick. Let's go. But we always wear our masks because it really is a tight space. And that's what we've learned. Some people were actually criticizing masks if we're rehearsing. We have to protect ourselves. People have families. Some people have older parents or in there also. We're all going through it. We don't know if this is what's going to solve the problem, but I'm going to do the best that I can. If I have to rehearse with the mask, I'm going to rehearse with the mask. And I even told the band that. What are you guys complaining about? Slipknot, have masks their whole lives, and it's the most normal thing in the world. And so we just have to adapt. That's the best thing that I think about humanity. And if you look back in history, come on, things have been way worse. The First World War, the Second World War. There's been pandemics, the Spanish flu. The recession. People having nothing. My parents came from villages. My father didn't have toys. He taught me how to cut an orange. With holes, they'd make these glasses, like a mask, and that was his toy. I still come from that. My father actually, took sheep, when he was a kid. And my uncles, my grandfather had sheep. That's what they would do. They'd go out and to walk the sheep, like a sheep herder. And they were so young. They went to Lisbon. They worked. They immigrated. They worked in factories. They did everything they had to do to put food on the table, to buy a house, to have a living. And was it easy for them? Of course it wasn't, especially in those times. So sometimes these days, and we're at home. We got internet. We were ordering Uber, and where we complain about. I mean, you have to get a vaccine. Okay, to get it. How many vaccines do we have to take? Like we have tuberculosis. You have AIDS. You have so many Ebola. There's so many diseases out there. If you go to there's some countries, sometimes we'd have to, like tropical countries, we'd have to get a vaccine. Like Brazil, they had dengue and like all these like yellow fever. So you have to have your vaccination in date to go to some areas. Fortunately, at the time, I didn't have to do it, but we did go to this tropical section of a hospital once in Lisbon to get these vaccines. So this is part of life. This is what we have to do to make sure we continue healthy and make sure our children, our grandchildren have a home. That's another issue, like the way the planet is. I mean, that's always something that, like, from traveling, I see a lot. Like, there's not just the poverty, the social differences. There's like the pollution. Like, if you go, I've been in China, I've been in Mexico, São Paulo. It's like these big cities, man. Just like I live near the ocean here in Portugal. I'm really lucky. I get good air. But some people don't breathe well. I mean, there are places where people already have to wear masks. Yeah. If you see those guys that ride the bikes in the cities, to get the packages everywhere, they wear masks with those filters because of the smog and the car pollution. And actually, I discovered that I like to run, especially during the pandemic. It made me a little bit mentally stable, running every morning. And I started running in the beginning with the mask. And they hear the ocean in my house. There's actually there's a road where a lot of cars pass, and it was always irritating me that I was running up, getting this smoke of the cars. And when I put on the mask, like, hey, this is actually cool. I don't have to smell the cars anymore. There is some benefits. I just read today, like, Clown from Slipknot, how he's saying that he's going to continue to wear masks. His reason is he's saying how people are disgusting. I wouldn't go that far, but I understand it, because I traveled my whole life. If you're in an airplane and one person's sick, you're sick. If you're in the bus, like I toured my whole life with the air conditioning, and you're sleeping in that bus every day,
everyone's gonna get it.
It's hard in the long run. And I was always sick, actually. I spent a good part of my life. I get a good part of my life sick from all the traveling. So that is a good thing. If you can. Actually, I remember being on planes with people coming from China, or especially China, yeah, of course, and they were wearing masks. And I remember looking at them like, oh man, it's so weird. Why are they wearing masks? They don't like us? Or they think we're sick? And then I discovered, maybe it was their culture, because if they're sick, they don't want to get you sick. So they put, out of respect, they put on a mask. And then I learned that, this is way advanced, man. We should learn this. Of course, that makes sense. And then this hits, and it's like everyone's wearing masks. Maybe the Chinese just wanted us to wear masks like that.
The whole time, exactly. But I wanted to dive in a little bit into just how different the world is, starting a band back in the day and the way things are now. We have a question from Junior in the chat. How was the label's treatment of bands changed in recent years compared to back in the 90s? Having to start over, start up again with all the experience that you bring, but how has the actual ecosystem changed?
Well, I haven't had much contact with any labels at this present moment. I have my experiences. I think I might have some doors open, at least the curiosity. That's why I'm doing these songs and the demos, so I can have something proper to show the labels. So I don't know how the treatment's going to be yet. I hope so. I had some good feedback, at least the will of listening when the stuff is ready. I know that back in the past, the labels helped a lot, construct bands. like telling them what studio to go to, which producer to use, image. They had a lot of input, especially with us. They had a lot of input back then. They're really trying to construct bands. These days, what I've noticed with labels, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I have that feeling through this experience, and that's actually what I'm doing and happening, is that you really have to do everything yourself. They really want to see until what point you can take the band. So being organizing, not just the studio, but the photo shoots, the videos. Because back in the day, you couldn't do like a good video without having some support from the label. Or you couldn't do a tour without any tour support. And these days, you couldn't expose the band without having some kind of channel or a proper channel that was through the labels. And these days, we have internet, so any band can do it. And you've had sensations, Justin Bieber or whatever. Put some, him playing guitar, and he becomes this huge sensation overnight, just because he put something on YouTube. So the game is completely changed. We have so many tools. It's just a question of how much time, dedication you want to put into it. But there were moments where I was getting so much feedback and so many messages that my wrist was hurting. My wrist already hurts from all the drumming and pounding all these years, as you can imagine. But my wrist was hurting from talking to people and writing posts and doing stuff. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I always hated technology. How is this happening? But I'm doing it because I want to promote my band. I want this to work. So then I figured out that you can actually, talk and it writes for you. Like, whoa, you can do this. So, so a lot of the messages I started, especially sometimes even with the band, like sometimes everybody was so excited, and sometimes people don't, like I'm talking to one person, but sometimes talking to almost 10 people at the same time, messaging there. Fortunately, the last week of July and the beginning of August, things really calmed down. I don't know if everybody went on vacation, I don't know what happened, but there was a moment, like especially throughout the last couple of months, before the summer, like I was really like hammering it, but then I'm like, people, even the band was saying, oh, maybe it's a lot of pressure, or even my wife, but in the end, like, this is actually making me excited. This is actually giving me a lot of energy, and I even sleep better at night because I feel like I used to watch. I remember being on tour, and to kill the hours, I'd be on Netflix, and I watched thousands of series because there was always nothing to do, always waiting for the show. And the backstage, I download all these series so I could go on the bus and during the night. And now I'm so it's explosive of the dynamics of creating a new band and being involved with so many different things. And I turn on the TV at night, and actually I'm just talking to people, I'm listening to it. I barely see series anymore. Like maybe I'll watch a movie once in a while because I don't have much time anyways, because especially with my daughter and all the other activities I have, and I sleep better. Actually, I used to have problems sleeping. I used to always be anxious, so like especially before shows, sometimes it'd be 4 a.m, I couldn't fall asleep. At the same time, that's the hour I would normally go to bed on tour, because when you're on tour and if you play at midnight or 1 a.m, then like sometimes I'd be so tired after the shows from playing, but your brain's like everywhere, and I couldn't shut down, and I'd be in my bunk like for hours, like trying to sleep. Or then you would listen to music, but then the music would get me excited, and before you know it, like you're talking to the bus driver at 6, 7 in the morning, and they're like, hey, how you doing? It's like, you're still up? Oh yeah, I'm probably up. And you keep on doing this routine. Then you get back home. I mean, how do you go back to a normal life? And that's what I missed the most, I think, through all these years, the sunlight, to actually wake up early. I haven't waked up early in years, like a normal hour, like a normal person. Like musicians, we don't get that. And it's so important for our mental health, for everything, our biology, the way we recover, even our attitude. The joy you have for life. Why is so? I have this experience with my Scandinavian friends. Like they don't have much sunlight. Most of them are depressed out of their minds during the winter. It's like like you wake up and it's already dark out, and so having light in your life. In Portugal, that's another thing. Portuguese don't realize how lucky we are. That's why everything is so late here. Like sometimes people are getting out of work at 8 at night, 9 at night, and everybody go. Even my parents are in their 80s; they go to bed at midnight. So we take that also for granted. But I sure know how to enjoy it. That's for sure.
I think that's the beauty of seeing everything that you guys are doing now. It's kind of a combination of all the experiences and everything that have put you into in the position that you are, knowing exactly what you're doing, but also that, like we were talking about earlier, just that switch that happens with the kids or the switch that happens with the pandemic, trying to figure out where the world is going. You've been around the world, seeing different environments and seeing what the earth is going through itself, what people are going through, and in a weird way, because of this modern technology and the way you're able to talk to everyone and the way you're kind of finding a new rhythm instead of spending it tirelessly awake in the bus trying to figure out how to sleep. You can have a conversation with someone or post a video or post a little thing and get people to know you, the person, even more. It's I feel like it's a big positive in my opinion. I mean, I am online, so I do think being online is a positive thing. But in a way, it gets people to know the person behind the music. Like there's a lot of people. I could see some of them that were in the chat talking about how like they're now getting to know you better because they haven't had a conversation with you before. The hour, 2 hours conversation people get to know you better.
I hear that a lot, actually, that now that you mentioned, because I've had more time and I started talking to people. The few interviews I've done, which I thank everyone, because I was so surprised that people wanted to interview me. So I was like, the band, we don't have anything. You really want to interview me? Or like even with the with the little posts that I have and the feedback I get. And of course, I realize it has to do with my past, and that's the true connection of everything that maybe I did, throughout the years, and maybe the friendships that I made throughout the years, and it's all like coming back to me now. But still, there's a lot of people out there because, like I said, I played festivals for 80,000 people back in the 90s, like the Dynamo, or sometimes you have festivals, 10,000, 20,000. Even if you have like just 500 people a night, if you do 50 shows, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk to everybody. And that's what people notice now. Like, I didn't know you were like this, Mike. I didn't know this and that. Well, yeah, we never had probably a chance to check. Because that was the most frustrating, especially the last couple of years. Because especially when you start to headline a lot. Like, I remember in the early years when I was supporting, Type of Negative, and Morbid Angel, and Tiamat, and all these great bands. Like, you were the first band on, and you were, you were showered, and you were ready for the headlining show. So I was hanging out at the merch booth. I was in the crowd. I'd go backstage, talk to the techs. By the time the headlining band was over, like, I had talked to everybody. I had a great time. I was probably drunk by then. I don't know. Well, actually, I didn't drink. I didn't do many things in my early 20s. The problems came around my 30s. But, so I had a great time, like really enjoyed it. But then, when you start headlining a lot, it's like you finish the show, and like you take a shower, you have to wait for the shower. You're lucky to get some hot water because all the support bands use the hot water by then in some venues. And then you're ready, and there's a few people that wait. Of course, there's all those amazing people that wait for you. They want autographs. Even those that wait around for you, by the minute you're like taking the photo. Okay, next. Get in the bus. And everybody's yelling at you, and you got to put your stuff in the bus, and because you have 5 or 6 hours drive to the next venue. It's like, oh man, I can't even like chill for a moment. And it's so why are you doing this? It's like, why do you do this? At least for me, the best part was to hang out with people. So you become isolated. Like, you're doing all this music, and I think a lot of musicians is gonna feel what I'm talking about. And you're alone. You
Yeah.
play for thousands of people. And at the end of the day, you're in your bunk by yourself. You've been with the band for almost 30 years. Even the techs that work for you, they've been with you for at least 10 or 15. Like, we're all sick of each other. we know, like, we've been together. Like, I was more times with them than I was with my wife. My child, which I was only 5. I've never spent no time with her compared to my past. And then at the end of the day, you feel alone. It's like, and then other things start happening, of course, when we come to the life of rock and roll on the road. And then a lot of problems start happening. It's like the human touch. Like, it's the best drug in the world, man. Having friends in music is the best drug in the world. Remember that. And everything else is just a substitute for what you don't have. And that's the biggest problem on the road. They have so many hours to kill. Like, you're just like, you're like a ghost. Like, sometimes you're a ghost around. So for the new bands, man, you gotta be really focused. And I admire some of these new bands because they're doing their shows. They're doing their social media. They're on FaceTime or with their girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever, their family. They're somewhat organized. It's a new generation. I didn't have that. Like, I had to go get phone cards in Germany to call home. Actually write letters. I used to write letters, and people didn't know what was going on. If you saw a review of a show, you had to be in the magazine. Now you do anything, like, at that precise moment, people are already commenting on your show. You get off the show, you already have, I don't know how many comments of what you just did. And sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Sometimes it can get to you, or if it's negative, or it can be something positive. In my opinion, it's like, if you don't want to get bad, feedback, then you shouldn't be in this position. It's natural. If you're going to put yourself out there, then you're going to get the good and you get to get the bad. But how you deal with it has to do with yourself. And the most important thing is the reality. This is a phone. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't bite, man. So it's just information. So what's important is what's in front of you, is the people that are in front of you, the people that you're playing music with, the people you're playing music for, the local people. I always love, like, coming into a venue and, like, go and talk to the cook. Like, she's gonna feed me that day. The security, the stagehands. Oh man, the stagehands. I had a great time with all the stagehands in my life. We had many adventures with the stagehands because they're always the local people and they know how to get everything.
they know exactly where to go for what you need.
Connection with those dudes. Oh, but you gotta get good with the stagehands. So I think that's the beauty is that, but it has to do with, especially drummers, because it's all very physical. It's all like the way our heart beats is the way, the drums beat, and you can't. It's hard to fake. It's really hard to fake that. Especially these days, everything's like, the technology, the production, the Pro Tools, the digital, the albums you listen to. It's not what they used to be. I mean, I'm still from the time where I had to record on tape. I know what it's like to record on tape. I know what it's like to release an album with real mistakes. I have some. I have albums with mistakes, and people love it. And now everything has to be
quantized and sliced and added.
Shit, like complete. It's absurd, man. You can't even breathe no more. It's just not normal. It's not normal. I don't, especially being a drummer. It's what I've been fighting the most throughout these last years, and it's what with this band. But of course, I have to find a balance, because then you work with producers, and they also have a certain way of working. But my fight is always, please keep it as natural as possible. Please keep it as close as possible to what I would play. The organic of the band. I think that's what the music is missing. I think, especially from, like, I'm not trying to recreate the 90s, because that's impossible. But I miss certain, those bands I've mentioned. So it was so incredible, because metal back then was just it was guitars, drums, hard vocals. But then we started mixing keyboards, classical music, female vocals. Like I was a huge fan of, as you know, like Oriental percussion, Middle Eastern percussion, African percussion. Like you hear that a lot in my first releases. I tried to bring that back a little bit with this new band. Thinking of like people that can be part of this project, that can bring something different. I love bands like Dead Can Dance. It's always been part of my journey, because it brings elements from all out throughout the world. That's what I was thinking. Like I traveled so much, so it's important for me to have sometimes that remind me of a certain place, and that's why I tell the band sometimes. Like it's more than just the music. It's like it's actually a real experience. And the way I've been trying to make music is like, how does so and so from this country, how would he like to hear this? But I'm actually thinking of that person.
Yeah.
Like, if that person likes it, like, fuck yeah, man. If that guy likes it, like, from America, Mexico, doesn't matter, Brazil, doesn't matter, man. I have friends all over the world. And I think that's what I tell sometimes, and I say this in interviews, that's my biggest treasure of all. And it's not even the albums I think I released. Of course, there are songs that are so important to me that I'll never forget. And sometimes I'm even sad thinking that I might never play them again. Still not sure about that, how that's going to work out. But if I don't, like I played certain songs thousands of times. I have an opportunity to make new music. But even in this new music, I try to bring certain feelings of my past so I don't miss it so much. So it's in this music, like a little camouflage, not recreate. Want, a part two. We know how part two of movies go. It's never as good as the first one. So I don't want that at all. I want this actually to be a fresh band. And I think so far what you've listened to, it's you can see that it's a pretty different. It has a different route in 100%. Terms of influences. And I want to keep it. Cool, man. See, this is important to me. That kind of feedback, that's what keeps me going. Sometimes I'm a bit down because it's taking so long for something to happen. I'm not sure about if I'm going to get a label or not, if I'm ever going to tour again. But then I get this feedback, when I put these little posts and the people, the way everyone reacts and the way people are so certain that this is going to work. And I have so many years in front of me of playing. Like, you sure? You think so? So I'm here for the ride, and I'm gonna do what I've always done. I think it's like I'm just used to I've never had a job in my life. I've never, I've lived for music my whole life. What am I supposed to? Maybe teach Taekwondo, which I have, and I helped out my master. He actually had an operation to do 2 months ago, so he had to go to Brazil. He's Brazilian. He's lived here most of his life. He has family there, so actually his families are doctors, so he went there to get the operation. And I had to do a whole bunch of his classes, and I really missed that. I really missed from kids to adults to be in that position. So of course I could always do that, but is that going to be like the chunk of my life? Like, it's hard because I always used to do stuff like that, like in between, like off tours, or I would sometimes be crazy. I'd like get off the plane and go straight to a Taekwondo exam or a tournament or whatever. And I really want that part of me to come back, that energy, because that's what, and vice versa. Because when I would get on stage, it sometimes, this is what would come out. Sometimes I do stuff that I even would impress myself. I would be like, who are you? and like, if you see me practice by myself, I'm half the drummer as I am if I know people are watching me. And I've always been like that. I think I get most of my fuel from people believing in me.
I think I could speak for everyone that's tuning in live and let me know if you guys watch this after the live, because this is going to go up on Spotify and YouTube and stuff. But at least everyone that's tuning in live seems to agree 100% that they're very much looking forward to the new stuff to come, and a couple of people are agreeing. This is not there's no part two here. This is a standalone thing, and I think that's the excitement about it. That it is a standalone thing, and that you guys are out swinging like. For a first, like you were calling them demos or teasers and all that stuff with the production value that you guys are sending out. This isn't a starting band. It feels like an established band that's doing something new, versus a band that's not necessarily starting out just now. So I think that's a lot of the comments and the feedback that you're getting back might stem from that.
That's my biggest fear. Like, I don't want to play live and have that feeling like, oh, these guys have rehearsed together like a couple of times. No, I want to go on stage, and I want people to think we've been together for 10 years. That's how I want it to sound. No, and I think it's possible, because our first rehearsal, like, I showed some images to close friends of mine that followed my whole career, and they were like, "Wow, it feels like you guys have been playing together for years." And I'm like, I don't know how this happened. Like, this is like that good friend of mine from the radio station I was telling you about. He's the one that got me connected with these musicians. I've known some of them for years, like Josh and Butch. I didn't know Ben, which is our main guitar player. That he brings all the riffs into the room, man. That first rehearsal that we had, I tell this story a lot, because it amazed me, because actually most of them have had projects more connected to hard rock. It wasn't so aggressive, so metal. So in the beginning I was actually thinking, well, I don't have many alternatives. This is Portugal, this isn't Finland. I don't, like, unless I move to another country to get established musicians, I really have to work with what I got here. These guys want to play with me. That was the most important thing for me. You want to play with me? Let's do it. Like, I wasn't going to be picky. I knew that they were like really professional, so let's go. But I thought, like, okay, maybe this is going to be more hard rock orientated. And I was still like, my head was still like all over the place, still blurry. A few months after my departure, and then the rehearsal, Ben starts like playing these black metal riffs, like what? Like, you play stuff like that? I was truly surprised. Like, I had no idea. And he starts playing like even like death metal stuff. I'm like, whoa. He made me feel like a kid. He made me feel like I was in my first band, there was this band that I was in called Decade when I was 14, which was like death black metal, where they were like, every rehearsal I had to play faster. So, like, you just have to be faster. So every week it's like faster. And I even told him, like, you're trying to I call myself like the old guy in the band now. So you're trying to mess with the old guy here, like, and I'm like, whoa. So it got me so excited, and it made me realize I can actually, from this band, make my dreams happen again. Like, I can actually put the music that I've been listening to my whole life and played my whole life into this project. Of course, lots of molding, and that's where I'm very grateful, because these guys have listened to me 100%. Most of the stuff, like, you can imagine me as like a filter. Like, I listen to stuff, and I always try to bring it to some kind of natural balance, and the way you would do it in the studio. Like, there are simple things, like when you play a riff, is like, does it sound like an exercise, or does it sound like you're playing in front of thousands of people and you're killing it and it's vibrating and your soul is going through those strings? So which one is it? Which one you prefer? You want to play the exercise? You want to like have flames come out of your fingers?
I like that. I haven't heard people say, does it sound like an exercise before. That's very true. Does it sound like you're just kind of, something you memorized, or does it feel soulful?
Yeah, man, that's the main thing I told them, like, from the beginning. This band has to have a lot of soul, has to be epic, and of course it has to have power. Like with metal, you always have to have power. But it has to be real, and we have to have fun. I'm sick of, and I don't want problems. I don't want drama. I want, love for metal, man. It's just like, of course, down the road, I've been through this. Things will happen. One person will say one thing, one will say another thing, or opinions, or especially if you have success. Then if you have success, then oh man, if their egos start growing, it's like mushrooms that's popping up. But I don't think that. I think that we're a state. Everybody's in their late 30s. Also, they've had normal jobs their whole lives. With the experience that I have, I really think that we can be an honest, humble band that fans can see that we're here. That we're here for them, and that's what people forget. When you make music, okay, of course you want to satisfy your own needs. You're making music for people. And if they don't like it, or if they're turning their nose, and then you keep on insisting in some direction or some sound, trying to tell them, no, you have to listen to this. This is what's good, man. No, it's the other way around. That's what I've been doing. Like I didn't listen to people. People give me their, even with my other albums, people would give me their opinion. I'd be like, yeah, maybe you're right. Okay, maybe that album wasn't the best. Because that's normal. And some people would actually say the most horrible things, and I'd swallow it. I'd be like, okay, it's your. Some people say sorry. Oh, I don't know your band. I've never heard of you. It's like, you don't have to, man. There's 7-8 billion people in the world. Like, of course you've probably never heard of my band. Most people don't know Metallica, and they're the biggest metal band in the world. You think everybody, this is like a small community. We think it's so big, but it's not as big. It's what we live. So It's normal that most people, that's another thing I thought, like, why am I so worried? Like, if people are going to compare me to this or to that, or if there's going to be space. There's so many opportunities in this world. There's so many people. Like, I can maybe even go, get a new audience, people that, that don't even know my ex-band. And they just found out this one, and they're like, oh, this is cool. And of course, my main, what I'm hoping and aiming for is, of course, all the people that have followed me all these years. Those are the people that I think about the most, and putting smiles on their faces. That's the basis of it. Like, and if I get that, and if I satisfy those people, my true mission is accomplished. That's what I definitely aim for. Is to the people that are closest to me, like even my close friends, just like high school, I guess. I sold demos in my school, man. I even sold a demo to my economics teacher. I think she still has it. And that demo on eBay is worth something these days. You would never think about that when you were young, like something that would cost like $2 or $3. And now people are selling it on eBay for I don't know how much. Yeah. And that's the business side I have. It's like that's not my best part, I admit. But we'll get there. We'll figure it out. As long as I get to do the music, get to play live, in the hangout. That's what. It's like I met Vinnie Paul, man.
Yeah.
And Vinnie Paul was like, never forget being on tour working. This was in Europe. This was 2003. We were on tour with Type O Negative and Cradle of Filth. And we were in Texas, and Vinnie Paul comes down with his brother, Dimebag. He was still alive. Both of them were alive, which is really sad, man, to think that they're not even here no more. But I remember Vinnie was talking to the guitar player of Type O Negative, and I was acting like a kid, like, oh man, can you introduce me to Vinnie? He's like, oh sure, here's my Portuguese friend, Mike. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, Vinnie, can I give you an album? This was Antidote at the time. He's like, sure, man. If you give me the CD, when I get in my car, I'll pop it straight in the CD player. And I really believed him. A lot of musicians will accept CDs and they'll probably never hear it in their lives. But the fact is that when we would like return and even headline, sometimes I'd be in the club. I was going on stage. I think I was in where was I? Fort Worth. I think it was in Fort Worth, this club that we used to play. And I see this hat coming through the door, like right before me hitting the stage. And it was really Paul. So he would actually come down to the shows, but just to hang out, just to be with friends and see a metal show. You know, and you can't, and this was Vinnie Paul, one of the most influential drummers and bands of all time. And that's the person that I idolize. That's the person I want to be. These are the people that that really influenced me so much. Because I actually saw Pantera when nobody knew them in Cascais. They were opening for Annihilator and Judas Priest on the Painkiller tour.
Wow!
And I was in the first row. I was like 14 years old. People were moshing. I was getting kicked in my face, and I'll never forget, that band, because nobody knew them at the time. They were playing Cowboys from Hell. Vinny had this huge drum kit with these huge toms. Phil and Soul comes out crazy, banging. They had a different style. They were wearing like these ripped up, like grungy pants and flannel shirts, and it was just so weird because you were looking for like metal, and everything was like leather and spikes. These guys were like completely like fuck it. So it was just, but they had so much energy on stage. And that was the best show. By the time Judas Priest came on, I had to go sit in the bleachers because I was all ripped up. The funny thing is that years later, I actually listened to Judas Priest a lot. I actually really loved their stuff. But at the time, it was like, Pantera just did that for me. And I was going to say something else I can't remember right now. But I just remember that show being one of the oh, and I know what I'm going to say later. Because I remember playing Hellfest, let's say 15, 20, yeah, not even more, maybe like 20 years later. And I remember Phil Anselmo, he heard the name of my band, and he's like, "Oh man, Wolf Art was such an influential album." Or what did he say? He said that it was like, that it was new for the time. I don't know the exact word that he used. And I remember hugging him, and I'm like, I'm hugging Phil Anselmo, man. And then saying, good stuff about first album. Like, how did this happen? I have a lot of stories like that. From that one show, this was 10 years after that one show, I'm playing at Portugal in Switzerland, and with our players, from Annihilate. And I was telling him, "Oh man, I was a kid and I was seeing you play." And I'll never forget. And he turns to me, "Oh man, I was such an asshole then." Like, yeah, well, we changed, that's for sure. I hope I was never an asshole to anybody.
That actually ties in. I have two more questions for you, but that looking back kind of thing ties into the very last question I want to ask you. But going back to the way you interpreted musicians being up on stage and everyone that has inspired you and stuff along the way, there has been a ton of questions in the question box that I'm just gonna have to ask because these guys are kicking my ass to ask you. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but there's they want to know what happened with Moonspell. That's
what everybody.
A whole bunch of questions about that. But if you can, if there's anything, any form of shedding of light, you can.
There's not much I can say about that. I mean, well, you can know that I haven't talked to them for like a year and a half now, which is the sad part. Is like you spend your whole life with people, and then you come to this. It's like I have no connection with them, and sincerely, I don't want any connection with them at this point in my life. That's the sad part. And the drama part is what I want to avoid. Like I could say a million things right now, but to put that all online, to go through all that, it's just trash, man. It's just trash. And I think the world needs, some happiness and some joy and love. And to get into that, I'm not going to share much love at this point in my life. Maybe down the road in a couple of years, I'll feel better to talk about that. But the saddest thing for me is feeling that I let down fans, and that's the worst that I can, throughout all those years and all those albums, is that I really didn't want to let anybody down, and just so they know, like, you're the most important to me. The music I made will always, be with me. I have a hard time listening and going there at the moment. Like I said, like to think that I'll never play Alma Mater again, I'll never play Famud Madness again. Like all these songs, like that's really hard on me.
Yeah.
But I have to accept it. I have to move forward because last year I had some crazy moments. I didn't know what I was going to do. If you can imagine, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but if you can imagine my state. Yeah. Like I was going a bit nuts. I looked at my daughter. I saw how I was reacting, and I thought, you need a father that's mentally stable. So I just like that's done. Close that door. Of course, it's a door that's not closed because it's something that every day I think about things, which is I'm hoping for the day where I don't think about things no more. Think about that of everything that happened. But just to make sure that she's happy and make sure that I'm healthy and not doing anything stupid, and making sure that I continue to make music. And that's, I think, the most important thing. What they do with their lives or the direction they go. Like I hear a lot of things. I've had lots of fans complaining about things, and then like I'm sorry, I can't do nothing no more. Like I did the best I could until that point. I tried my hardest. I always tried to keep the band, stable with their feet on the ground, with to respect our past and our roots, and especially the fans. And that's what I'm kind of trying to do with my new band. So,
and that's the beauty of it. I think that is the beauty of it. Is that through thick and thin. Through everything that happened, you and I've heard you for the last 2 hours. You've prioritized the fans, the people that you call friends, the people that are in the chat now that have met you 11 years ago on the other side of the planet, that are tuning in to check in and check out what you got going on and support the new venture and support the new stuff. I think. Having gotten to know you over the last 2 hours, it's just, I think that's the bread. That's the bread and butter kind of the meat and potato. What's the saying, you guys? Chat, you let me know. What is the saying? The meat and potatoes. That's the spice of everything you've accomplished. And I think that's why people gravitate towards. I know you were saying like you don't necessarily see you as the guy in the band. That people see first, but I think that's why Seventh Storm has that attention to it, because you have made friends and attracted people from around the world with what you do, and the bread and butter is acceptable. Thank you, sir. Edmund Black in the chat. It comes from around the world, and I think that's why it's both. Very intriguing for everyone, and I think it's going to be one of those things that it transposes like you were saying. It's not necessarily because people know you from the previous band. It's going to have its own identity. It's going to have its own thing. It's just that people already have an attachment to you as a person.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's that makes me feel like amazing inside, and people, like I said, people that have met me, they know that I'm an emotional person. It's hard to hide that. Like I say, I'm an open book. What you see is what you get. I'm not going to be all, if it's going to be mysterious, it's going to be in the music. It's going to be on the show. That I'll go all out. Like I'll do anything to surprise you and excite you. But when it comes to the day-to-day, when it comes to talking to you, I try to be, as normal as I can. Like, why would I be any different? I spent my whole life behind drums, man, looking at four asses. So, maybe I have an opportunity to actually, be upfront in a certain way. And people understand this with this band. What really excites me is to see these guys, their dreams come true. When I see like that sparkle in your eye that you get to actually have an opportunity to do something you love. Like they're always talking about going on tour. Like these guys have never toured the way I have. They're so anxious. And if that happens, if I can get a deal for the band, if I can get us on tour, even support a band that they never dreamed in their wildest dreams, like I did. I supported Kiss in '97. I don't know, coming from America, especially, I was supporting Kiss. And their fans are difficult, man. And we actually overcame that. And I met like the crew members are all super nice. I was like 2 feet away from Gene Simmons. I played with Metallica. I wasn't backstage with, Lars and James, and like I could have been annoying, like and go there and take pictures. I was like you're in the same room with me. Okay, mission is accomplished. Like, okay, this is great. But like I remember being in Grasspop watching Black Sabbath with the reunion tour back in '97, and our backstage, Soulfly was there, Paradise Lost was there. We were there. I don't know. It was like 10 bands. The minute the bell hit from Black Sabbath, all the doors opened at the same time. We were all like kids, pop, 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 pop. And we all went out like in a straight line. Like if we were all going to school to watch Black Sabbath from behind the scenes. And I was with Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost, which also I'm a huge fan of Paradise Lost. And we were just talking about metal and about Black Sabbath. And like, how cool is this? Like I'm watching Black Sabbath. I'm talking to a guy that inspired me. We're all like acting like children, because of course it's just fucking Black Sabbath.
It's always amazing how even generationally speaking, like the fan side of a musician always stays the same. You were talking about that, and I immediately remembered once there was a show in Dubai Desert Rock Festival, it was called, and there were
we were supposed to play there once, I think. Never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a bunch of different bands on the roster, and from as new back then as like August Burns Red from the States, metalcore band. Who are looking up to Chimera, and then Chimera were there, and then Opeth and Arch Enemy, and this generational kind of fascination with each other. We were all standing backstage, and then a door opens, and it was Lemmy from Motorhead walking from his dressing room to the stage, and immediately everyone stood still. Everyone took their spot and just walked, and it almost looked like he was walking in slow motion at that point. He just walked slowly past everyone, said hello, walked up the stairs to the stage, and everyone, the guy, like August Burns Red were freaking out about Opeth being there. And then they were both looking at each other going, that's fucking Lemmy, dude. It's just, it's always amazing to see how like everyone's just a fucking fan at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, those are the true rock stars of our generation. Like we can't even compare to them. Like if you read Lemmy's biography, it's a true inspiration of life. Like after I read that book, like it just changed so much perspective that I had on him. This was already many years ago. And I became the biggest Motorhead fan. Like I never listened to it when I was younger, but especially these last years and his lyrics, it just really touched me and made so much sense to me. I even discovered that my personality and the way I see life and things is very similar to the way he saw things. And I feel that close connection. I felt this weird thing, and I haven't talked about this in a while. Maybe I've been so focused, but I feel these energies, like people that have touched my life, like Pete Steele, and, maybe Lemmy, or sometimes I feel like they're guiding me in the right connection, especially people that aren't here, that are, that I was closer to, like Pete Steele, for instance. Lemmy, I got to meet a couple of times, I didn't actually meet, but being backstage or play with him. But I noticed like one story, we were in Mexico, and I remember just to see how his humility was, how simple he was. He had the security guards follow him everywhere, and he gets backstage, And Charlie Benanti, the drummer of Anthrax, I notice everything. We're Portuguese. We're always looking at everything. Sorry if I'm telling too much information. But I remember he goes up to him to say hello, because they know each other for years, of course. He's from Anthrax. They probably played so many times together. And I remember the security guard getting in front and not letting him pass. And Lemmy, like, he slapped the security guy's hand. Like, what do you think you're doing? This is a friend of mine. Like a grandfather. Like a grandfather would do. Oh, you stupid. And I saw that, and then I was like, wow, look how, I mean, that's crazy, man. Like most bands, I've been with bands, I'm not going to mention one of these, big bands, especially American bands, they all carry this security around. You can't touch them. You can't talk to them. You can't take a photo. I mean, that for me is all bullshit, man. If you're a true star, you're always going to find some time for your fans. And that's the end of it. And I've seen that with so many, like Lemmy or like Typo Negative, these big tours, thousands of people, and they were so down to earth. Then you have other bands I won't mention, with these restrictions, and you can't you only can sell one, merch item, or you have to play with no lights, or your sound has to be lower than theirs, so they can be louder than you. So I mean, I'm not into this for that. If you're good, you're gonna prove it on stage, and if you're better and you're the headliner, then you better fuck.
Well, we all we all look forward to seeing you. And by the way, I just want to give a massive shout out to Metal East Records and Matosim for the hookup. And I know that when things open up and everything starts happening, I think they have plans for Seventh Storm to come to the Middle East again, and you get to see all the old guys that are stuck around for a long time, and hopefully meet a whole bunch of new people and introduce them to the band again, so we have 3 songs to look forward to. Is there a timeline? What's the future like? Is there a timeline we can give the chat?
Well, these 3 songs they're going to be mixed by a good friend of mine that has worked with me in the past, and he's an international producer. You probably figured out who he might be. But he actually offered to mix the songs, and I was like, I can't say no, because he's really close friends of mine, and he really wants to help out. So I'm waiting at this moment for him to, when he has time, because he's been busy with some other bands, to mix it. And then my objective is to use these songs to show to some labels. Maybe I might, put something up, maybe a minute or two. Because I'm from the time where if you have songs, like, you can't release them. So this is, like I said, this is all new to me. Like, what should I do? Should I put them online? Should I get more interest? Should I send them to the labels? Like, we're still figuring this out. But I haven't stopped, because I was like, we're just going to do 3 songs. So I just did 2-3 weeks ago a demo for another 4 songs. So I'm ready to record another 4 songs as we speak, and as soon as possible, because I'm just driving through. If there's no label, I'm going to do an album. And I'll release it. Like, I come from the underground, man. I'll release it any way I can. And we'll figure it out. But the most important thing is that, just these 3 songs is over 20 minutes of music. Because I can't get these guys to make a song less than 7-8 minutes, which has got me scared. But at the same time, like, this is kind of cool. Because if you really love music, you're going to want to listen to a long song, unless it's boring. I mean, if it's boring, then it's not good at 7-8. But everybody that's listened to it so far, like I said, like, they say, no, man, it goes by quick. It doesn't even sound like it's 7 or 8 minutes. And then it reminds me of, the great bands, or even Metallica, or, of course, I used to listen to Cathedral a lot when I was younger, like the Doomy bands. So you'd have these long ass songs, but it was so special because of that. And everything became so, mainstream. Like, a song has to have 3 minutes or 4 minutes. It won't pass on the radio. This kind of, mentality. And I think it cuts a bit the inspiration, because you're just really getting into the riff or getting into these parts, and you're already changing it. It's insane. And I think that nostalgia of, like, the longer songs, I think, is pretty cool these days. And not to have that pressure. Like, I don't have a label anyway, so what do I got to use? Might as well make everyone happy. and it's hard to cut. Maybe in the long run, if there's an edit that I might do, like, I've talked about that, of course. But the most important thing is that I have more songs to record, and I really have enough. Just with these other 4 songs are so big, I have more than enough for an album. So that's my plan is that I have, like, by 2020, like 2022. I don't know if it'll be in the beginning, the middle, or the end. I really want to release something so I can try and have some kind of live activity. That's what we've been talking about. I'm give it another year because I don't want to pressure anybody. But if I can get like at least a single by the end of the year or beginning of the next, because I feel also the pressure. Everybody's like anxious to listen to something. They really want to hear the song. So I have to balance this out. And like I said, it's all about the fans. I want to keep them happy. That's why I keep on doing these little teasers, like at least give them something. And we haven't even registered these songs, just so you know. I mean, it's like, I'm really like keeping the faith of the artistic side of this project, which is lacking. Like I said, everything's so corporate these days. Yeah. So let's see what happens.
Hell yeah.
And with your help in this show, sky's the limit.
Hell yeah! Thank you for your time, man, and genuinely appreciate the fact that we could have this conversation and get to know each other a little bit. And the chat, Roxanne, for example, saying looking forward to the new release. Fresh new tunes are definitely needed now. Good luck with the new band, and Rami from lebmetal.com throwing the thumbs up. Nocturna, really looking forward to the releases. The recording sessions and snippets have been really nice. Yeah, I think everyone's into it. Everything's lining up where everyone's having a great time waiting for this.
Man, that's amazing. I can't put words to what I'm feeling right now, because it's like I said, it's like you try to do so much, but at the end of the day, I'm in South Portugal, South Europe. And Lisbon is South Portugal, but not much goes on here. Like the metal scene doesn't really exist, and I was used to like so much going on, like everything, like having contracts with labels and the tours being booked and all this and that. But on the other hand, like I said, this was like an opportunity to rethink everything and start fresh and have another opportunity. And I thank everyone for that opportunity, because you are the guys that make the difference. Like I said, if you can play in your room and be the best band in the world, but you have to really get out there and interact with people and put your sweat, blood, and tears on that stage, man. And I sure did do that a lot. Believe me, I did that a lot.
Absolutely, and now we have a means of communication, you and I, and you, and in turn with the rest of the tribe. You were talking about very early on about how you felt metal was a tribe. I call each and every single one of those guys a tribe member, and so once things start happening, once the songs are figured out and released, and maybe we could do a part 2, sit down and discuss with the tribe how it happened, and we'll stay updated. You guys follow all the links that we posted. Make sure you're updated with the band.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna ask actually the rest of the band. Band, you're listening? You gotta post all these links. Help me out here.
we got you covered. I post all the links. They're already in the chat, so everyone that every time your camera went on, it went in the chat. But also, if you guys don't already know, we have a Discord server, and we post all the links and all the highlights and all the updates on that Discord server. And just come on down, join the Discord. Have a great community over there.
Perfect timing. I'm gonna put my daughter to bed now.
Awesome. It's perfect, man. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an amazing conversation. And
I can't believe the time flew.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Great show. I think one of the best conversations and shows I've had, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dude. To officially end the podcast, you guys already know what we have in store. Mike, I'd like you to say the words hit. Thank you, Ace, for the clap. Mike, I'd like you to say the words hit the outro, and that will officially conclude our episode.
Okay, guys, hit the outro.